You have um, um, tough base. In the case of wooden tables, a handbreadth above the ground that touch one another at their corners, and there is tumah underneath one table, someone who touches the other table becomes tummy for 7 days. Utensils underneath the first tablet become tummy, whereas those under the second remain tahu. A tabletop does not spread tumah unless it extends beyond its base by a handbreadth. In the case of barrels that are outdoors, standing upright or lying on their sides, which touch one another by a square handbreadth. If there's tumah underneath one barrel, tumah penetrates directly up and directly below. Um, in what case does this apply? When the barrels are tahor. However, if they are tummy or a handbreadth above the ground and there's tumah underneath one of them, the area beneath all of them becomes tummy. In the case of a house divided by boards or curtains from the sides or from the joist, if there is tumah inside the house, utensils inside the partition section remain tahor. If there is a tumah inside the partition section, utensils under the house become tummy. When there, excuse me, when there are utensils inside the partition section, if there's a cube handbreadth, they become tummy. If not, they remain tahor.
Okay. All right. Now, Mishna, hey, another configuration of partitions inside the house. So he partitioned it horizontally, like made a false floor, for example. Okay. This is exactly, remember the case that we had with the little pipe that went under the house, or the sewer that went underneath. This is basically exactly the same. Okay, tumah b'chatzatz. What happens if the tumah is inside the separated off area? Well, so because we're no longer talking about something that's got an opening to the outside, so of course the tumah is going to come out into the house. But let's just see what happens here. Tumah b'chatzatz kalim shebabayis tameim. So all of the kalim that are in the house are tamei because the tumah's got to come out somehow. Okay, tumah b'bayis. Now what happens if there's tumah inside the house? Kalim shebechatzatz. What's going to be the case with kalim that are in the false floor? Im yesh bimkoman tefach al tefach al rum tefach. So if there is a cubic tefach underneath this floor, tahorim, then it's a good mechitza, and these kalim are kept tahor. Okay, ve'im lav tamein. But if not, then they become tame. Why? Because if you don't have that tefach gap, then you've got a space that's no longer that's basically buttled to the ground, and the tumah and everything underneath the house, all the way up to the depths is like the house. Okay. Bayis shehu malei tevin. That's an interesting case. The house has been stuffed with straw. Okay, the ein beino lebeina chorus poseach tefach, even up to the ceiling. Now there's not. So the important thing, there's not a tefach underneath the ceiling. The entire place is completely stuffed like a storehouse. Okay, you could have such a thing if you have a granary or something like that, or some sort of storehouse of straw that's completely full of straw. Okay. So now what happens if there's a tumah somewhere inside this room? Okay. So now does the roof form an ohel? Well, it actually can't form an ohel because there's no air underneath it. Okay, it's completely stuffed with all of the straw, which reduces its size. Okay. Now it's not as if it's so if there's a gap in front of the door, we're saying, so let's say there's a gap now in front of the door, so that area there, if there are kalim inside there, then basically the straw itself forms like an ohel over there, and that's the area where the tumah can spread into. So that will become tumah over there. Tumah b'chutz. What happens if the tumah is in that gap itself? Kalim right. And you've got kalim that are buried under the straw. Im yesh bimkomam tefach al rum tefach. So if they themselves are inside a little pocket of air that's got a cubic tefach above them, then that forms a little protective ohel over them.
Oh, the utensils.
Out of the straw. So they're protected and they are tahor. Im lav tameim. But if not, then the roof, then basically, because there's a tumor inside this whole house, the tumor can spread through the whole through the whole area. So that then the whole then the tumor does spread throughout the whole storehouse, because wait, hang on, let's just want to see that explanation again. Something's not making sense in my head now. Im lav tameim kadin chatzatz. So we say if im yesh bein hateven lakoros b'seach tefach. So if you have a tefach gap between the straw and the ceiling of this room, your camera's just gone off, by the way.
Yeah.
So if there's a gap between the straw and the ceiling, then ben kach or ben kach tmeim, then even if you have a pocket of air around the kalim elsewhere in there, the whole thing is going to become tamei. Now this is the interesting part over here, because the teven is not considered like a mechitza. It's just it's not considered a permanent mechitza, because obviously it's meant to be cleared out at some point. Okay. So some Mefarshim explain the reason is ohel gam lamala min hateven, because you actually have an ohel above the straw itself. Even if there is a poseach tefach in the place for the kalim, this is an ohel inside an ohel, and an ohel inside an ohel does not protect things that are tahor unless you're not going to remove it, unless it's like a permanent ohel inside there.
The teven that's there, there's other teven. I don't know how to explain it, but you just said
it's a temporary storehouse. It's not like the straw is going to be permanently there. It's straw. You don't like put it there because you think, okay, from now for the next 10 years I'm going to keep my straw over here because it's nice. It's by its very nature, it's a temporary dweller over there. So if you had a room inside, so for example, the most clear case of a permanent ohel within an ohel is like you have a big roof and then you have a room within there that's built out of bricks. Okay. So that room itself is an ohel inside an ohel, and it will protect against tumor. If the door is closed, then right. If tumor in the outer room, then the inner room is protected. That we've seen hundreds of times.
Okay.
But an ohel within an ohel cannot. But if it's a temporary ohel, it cannot. Then it cannot protect against the larger ohel. So therefore, it's not considered an ohel at all, and it doesn't protect what's inside it. However, if there's no poseach tefach between the straw and the ceiling, it's not called an ohel inside an ohel. It's still considered a little ohel in the corner over there, and it does not get the tumor spread to it. This is a complicated little case over here. It's yeah, it's one of these areas of tumor dynamics that I'm not entirely sure how to grade. If you gave me the case, I don't know that I'd be able to derive this myself. Okay, Mishna Zayin. Mil'o afar otzroros ubitlo. Okay, so this house, they basically just dumped a whole bunch of stones and rocks and whatever, or dust into it, and basically it's now filled up. This is stones and rocks are a lot more permanent than straw, and so now this has basically been filled up, and it's now no longer an ohel. Okay,
it was filled with straw. You get sherrits in there. Eventually, you're going to get something going to come in there inside.
I guess,
Messing
but
up.
a sheretz doesn't cause tumas ohel. You're talking
Right,
about from a human body.
right.
Okay. V'chein kri shel tavua. Similarly, if you have a pile um,
Grain.
of
It says
grain,
grain.
yes, of grain that is put out outdoors, says the commentary, or gal shel tzoros, or a mound of stones. Afilu kagala shel Achan, even if it's a huge mound like the mound of Achan. Achan was the guy that they buried outside Yericho after they executed him for stealing from from
Oils.
yeah. Okay, vafilu tuma betzada kalim, and even if the tuma is right next to the kalim, tuma bokas v'ola bokas v'yoredis. So in these cases over here, there's no real roof. Okay, so even if you've got a dead body inside here or underneath the pile, and you've got kalim right next to it but not touching, the tumor goes up and down, does not spread.
So the utensils don't become tummy?
So the utensils stay tahor, because you need an ohel to spread the tumor, and these are not considered an ohel because there's no air gap. There's no air gap, then there's no ohel.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
No, cat, don't we have cat?
Yeah, so Yud base.
Oh wait, we finished 3 already. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Perforated right, a perforated slab is placed on top of an oven whose opening is sealed. If there is tuma beneath or above the slab, everything becomes tummy except for what is directly above the inside of the oven, which remains tahor. If there is tuma above the inside of the oven, whatever is directly above the tuma until the sky becomes tummy. A board is placed on top of an old oven and protrudes a handbreadth in 2 directions, but not on the other sides. If there's tuma on this side, utensils that are on the other side remain tahor. Rabbi Yossi declares them tameh. Rabbi Tak does not spread tuma. But if there is a ledge, Rabbi says it does not spread tuma. Rabbi Yeshua says we view the batak as if it not exist, and the ledge above it spreads tuma. There is a shield on the leg of a crib that protrudes through the ceiling of the lowest story of a house. That the hole is as big as the handbreadth, everything becomes tummy. If not, we count the way we usually count for tuma from a corpse. Okay. Caleb. Zion. The remnants of a prod from above. The measure is 4 handbreadths. The handle of a spade, the measure is 4 handbreadths. The handle of a mattock for pounding, the measure is 5 handbreadths. The handle of a small hammer, its measure is 5 handbreadths, and that of a hammer is 6 handbreadths. The handle of an axe for splitting wood and for hoeing, its measure is 6 handbreadths, and the handle of a stonemacer's chisel, its measure is 6 handbreadths. The remnants of the blade from below, its measure is 7 handbreadths. The handle of a householder, a shovel, the Shammai says that measure is 7 handbreadths. Beis Hill says it's 6. I'm sorry. Its measure is 8 handbreadths. The handle of a shovel of plaster, Ben Shammai says its measure is 9. Beis Hill says it's 10. The length of the handle is more than this. It wishes to prevail the length, it's tameh. If the handle of utensils that are used with fire, the measure is any length. Okay. One more. Regarding glass utensils, the flatware are tahor, the hollow weights are tameh. If they break, they become tahor. If one remade the broken utensils into new utensils, they are susceptible to tumah from then on. A table and its kula made of glass are tahor. If they have a rim, they are tameh. Regarding the bottom of a plate and the bottom of an iskula made from glass, which one has designated for use, are tahor. If it smooth them or shave them with a file, they are tameh.
Okay, so we're finishing Kalim tomorrow, and on Sunday starting at the beginning of Ohalos again.
Okay, so you can say we started Caleb again. All right. All right. Hey, the winding ramp ascended from the northeast corner to the northwest corner, on which they would go up to the roofs of the cells. He would descend the winding ramp with his face to the west, and we walked along the entire northern face of the Hakel building until he reached the west. When he reached the west, he turned his face to the south. He walked along the western face of the building until he reached the south. When he reached the south, he turned his face to the east. He walked along the south until he reached the entrance to the upper story of the Hakel, for its entrance to the upper story opened to the south. At the entrance of the upper story were 2 beams of cedar on which they would ascend to the roof of the upper story. Each of the beams divided the upper story between the area above the holy and the area above the Holy of Holies. Hatches were opened in the upper story of the chambers to the Holy of Holies, to which the craftsmen would be lowered in crates so that their eyes would not feast on the beauty of the Holy of Holies. The Hekel measured 100 by amos for 100 amos with a height of 100 amos, and the Otim was 6 amos. The height of the Hekel was 40 amos, 1 amma for each of the decoration, 2 amos for the bracing, 1 amma for the ceiling, 1 amma for the pavement, and the height of the upper story was 40 amos. 1 amma was for the decoration, 2 for the amos for the bracing, 1 amma for the ceiling, 1 amma for the pavement, 3 amos for the fence, and 1 amma for the crow chaser. Rabbi Yehuda said that the crow chaser was not included in the measure of 100 amos, rather 4 amos was the height of the fence. From the east to the west, it measured 100 amos. The wall of the antechamber was 5 amos, and the antechamber was 11 amos. The wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and the interior was 40 amos. The Yamatraskin was 20 amos for the chamber of the Holies Holies. The western wall of the Hekel was 6 amos. The cell was 6 amos, and the wall of the cell was 4 or 5 amos. From the north to the south is measured 70 amos. The northern wall of the winding ramp was 5 amos, and the winding ramp was 3 amos. The northern wall of the cell was 5, and the cell was 6. The northern wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and the area was 20 amos. The southern wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and the southern cell was 6 amos. The southern wall of the cell was 5 amos, and the place of lowering of the watering was 3 amos, and the outer wall, the place of lowering with the water, was 5 amos. The antechamber extended beyond the Hekel 15 amos to the north and 15 amos to the south, and this was called the chamber of the knives, for there they would saw the knives. The Hekel was narrowed in the back and wide in the front, and in this way was similar to a lion, as it stated. Ariel was sitting with David in camp. Just as the lion is now at the back and wide in the front, so too the Hekel was now in the back and wide in the front.
Okay. So we're also finishing Middos on Sunday, so they were starting Kinim.
Kinim and Ohalos.
Yeah, Vodazara.
Okay, Yud. If an idolater was found standing beneath the wine cistern, it has a lien upon it, it is prohibited. If it does not have a lien upon it, it is permitted. If he fell into the cistern and came out, or he measured with a reed, or he flicked out of the hornet with a reed, or he was tapping on the top of the foaming barrel, all these cases were actual incidents, and they should be sold. Shimon, however, permitted that took a barrel and threw it in his anger into the cistern. This was once an incident, and they declared it fit. If one prepares an idolatrous wine for impurity, and he places it in the domain of a house, which opens to a public domain, if it's in a city which has idolaters and Jews in it, it is permitted. But in a city which is entirely idol worship, it is forbidden unless he appoints a watchman. The watchman need not be constantly present and guarding. Even if he leaves and returns, it is permitted. If Shimon ben Elazar says all idolatrous domains are one. If one repairs an idolatrous wine impurity and places it in his domain, and this one writes to him, I received the money from you, it is permitted. But if the Jew would want to remove it, and he does not allow him to do so until he gives him the money, this was once an incident in Beishan where the sage is forbidden.
Okay. That.
Edom and Ohalos. Okay.
Yavamas.
If someone married a Shavama and then when she was found to be pregnant, she gave birth to the child is capable of living, he must discharge her, and then they are obligated to bring an offering. However, if the child is not capable of living, he may retain her. If it is not clear whether it is a 9-month child of a former husband or the 11-month or latter, he must divorce her. The child is legitimate and they're obligated to bring a pending guilt offering. If a woman awaiting a little inherited property, both Reish Shami and Reish Hillel agree that they may sell it and give it away. If she tried, what is to be done? If she died, what is to be done with the ketubah? And with the property that comes in and goes out with her, Reish Shami says the husband's heirs divided with the father's heirs, but it's Hillel, so the property remains where it was, and the ketubah is in the possession of the husband's heirs, and the property that comes in and goes out with her is the possession of the father's heirs. If he married her and she is considered his wife in their respect, except that a ketubah obligation rests upon the estate of the first husband.
Okay.
Last, we have Trias. Trias base. And one may base, right.
Gimel.
One may clear away the stones until Rosh Hashanah. One may clip, prune, and remove the abundance until Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Shua says that what applies to pruning or removing the abundance is the 5th year applies also in the 6th year. Rabbi Shimon says, so long as I'm permitted to tend the tree, I'm permitted to remove the redundance. One may besmear saplings, wrap them around, fill dry them, make them shelters for them, and water them until Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Eliezer of Tzaddik says, even in the 7th year, one may water the branches, but not the roots. One may oil unripe figs and pierce them until Rosh Hashanah. Unripe figs of the 6th year which have gone into the 7th year, and of the 7th year which have gone into the 8th year, may neither be oiled nor pierced. And Rabbi Yehuda says, when the custom is to oil them, one may not oil them because it ranks of work. Where it is not customary to oil them, one may oil them. If Shimon permits concerning a tree house, one may tend the tree. Okay. Good.
Okay, and we're done.
Have a great Shabbos.
Purim Samach, and we'll see you again on Monday, Mitzvah Hashem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.